Hello, and welcome back to Evolve, a series of talks where we look at the tools and practices for moving from pain to peace, from trauma to triumph, from worry to faith. I am not a doctor, however, I do have over a decade of experience, training, and certification in PTSD recovery, somatic healing, NLP, nonviolent communication, meditation, yoga, and many other things. So let's dive right in. We're looking at A Course in Miracles today, lesson 333. Forgiveness ends the dream of conflict here. The dream, the illusion, the false idea of conflict. Conflict must be resolved. It cannot be evaded, set aside, denied, disguised, seen somewhere else, called by another name, nor hidden by deceit of any kind if it would be escaped. It must be seen exactly as it is, where it is thought to be, in the reality which it has been given, and with the purpose the mind accorded it. For only then are its defenses lifted, and the truth can shine upon it as it disappears. Okay, this is a very potent lesson. So let's start with the first couple sentences. Conflict must be resolved. It cannot be evaded, set aside, denied, called by another name. Conflict must be resolved. What that means is we can't numb something and think it's gonna go away. We can't turn the other way and ignore it for 10 years and just because it's not at the forefront of our consciousness, think that it has gone away. So this pain that we have, anger, resentment, frustration, rage, whatever it may be, unless we're willing to look directly at it, sit with it, work through it, and alchemize, transform it, we cannot escape it. That's a powerful statement. We are very good sometimes at all the other things, evading it through food, through sex, through alcohol, through sports games, through gambling, through working 16 hours a day so we don't have time, distracting ourselves with all these projects and all these hobbies and all these other things so that we don't have any moment of stillness to sit and breathe and hold our pain with compassion, to hear our pain and listen without judgment, without fear, and let it be heard. What we are willing to feel can heal. And really, the majority of the healing often happens when we're just willing to acknowledge and listen. It's the same for us too. The same with emotions as with us. When we feel seen, we relax. If we don't feel like we're being heard and listened to and seen, we yell, we talk louder. It's the same with emotions. Unless they feel heard and seen, they scream. And if we've pushed those emotions down for long enough, hard enough, the screaming happens through disease. Not through the mind, but through the body. We store emotions in our body. The heart, the lungs, the liver, the pancreas, the kidneys, the intestines, they hold emotions. The anger is held in the liver, the fear is held in the kidneys, the grief and the melancholy is held in the lungs, the heartache is held in the heart. We hold these things in our body. So the Course is telling us you can't escape conflict. You must look at it directly. But the caveat here is when we look at it, we want to look at it through the lens of wholeness and of love, meaning without judgment, without guilt, shame, and blame. So when we look directly at, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm frustrated, I'm really hurting, this is painful, looking at it without judging ourselves and without judging the other person involved, looking at it without shame, without the shame that we carry of feeling this way, the shame of what happened, no shame, no guilt, no judgment. Really holding it tenderly, holding it compassionately, holding it the way you would hold a child who's sitting in your lap crying and telling you the story of what happened. A lot of this comes from our inner child wounds. So, cannot be evaded, set aside, seen somewhere else. It must be seen exactly as it is and where it is. For only then are its defenses lifted. So, let's look at why we would defend conflict, as in pain, as in anger. Defending conflict prevents us from having to take responsibility for it. It's a scary thing. It's a scary thing taking responsibility for our own pain. And basically, we can look at the world through two lenses if we look at forgiveness and conflict here. The first lens is through the lens of conflict. So through that lens, we are the victim. We have no power. And from that place of victimhood and having no power, we get to blame. We get to make the other person guilty or the world guilty. We've given away our power, given away our peace. And at the base of that, we don't have to take responsibility anymore for how we feel. Now you're in charge of it. And you effed it up. So now, not only am I freed from taking responsibility for my pain, now I also have a sense of false power and righteousness because you messed it up. You need to fix it. You need to apologize to me. This is your fault. So we've given away our power, which means we don't have to take responsibility. So it's off our shoulders and we get to be right. So there's a false sense of power as well. Not my responsibility and I'm in charge. This is all ego-based. We're not looking at this through judging. We're just looking at it directly as the Course asks us to. Look at what you're doing and look at what you're protecting. So this is why we protect our conflict, why we hold on to our pain. Because being the victim gives us a false sense of power and relieves us from the terrifying responsibility of being in charge of how we feel. It's scary from the other side, looking at it like that's a huge responsibility. What do you mean I have to be in charge of my emotions all day? I feel stuff arising in me all the time. Are you telling me that I caused this? Well, it's not that black and white, but yes. So that's why we protect, and that's why we hold on to our conflict and our pain. The other lens we can look through is forgiveness. And forgiveness, the way the Course describes it, is just a shift in perception. Basically saying, I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm in command. I have the power to choose. I take my power back. There's no sliding scale of power. I'm in power here, but not in power here. No, if you have the power, you have the power. In 100% of the responsibility, 100% of the situations that you're in. So when we're not the victim, we have a choice. We get to look at, question directly what we're feeling. So look at our pain without judgment. This is where the ego is insidious. It comes in even when we're trying to do the healing work. We're willing to look at our pain, finally willing to sit with it and take responsibility. And then the ego's voice comes in and says, oh my God, how terrible a person are you? Why would you cause yourself this much suffering, this much pain? Like, what's the matter with you? You must have some sort of pathology. You must be broken. Like, you must be a masochist. Like, this is where the ego goes. Anytime you hear a thread of thought that has guilt, blame, and shame, it's all the ego's illusions of limitation and separation. Even separation from your own self, your own heart, your own home. Set it aside. We don't even have to engage with it. We can acknowledge it. And this is where the power comes in of being willing to look directly at something. We start to see where the smoke and mirrors are. That which seemed like this huge Goliath is actually just a wall of smoke. that which seemed like a mountain that was going to come crumbling down onto me and crush me, is actually my pathway home, is actually the road sign pointing me back to my soul. Because the pain is not stagnant. On the other side of the pain, or beneath the shell of it, is the seed for wisdom and the actual plant for our blossoming and our freedom. We just need to be willing to crack open the seed. And that we cannot do unless we're willing to look directly at our pain, hear it, see it, hold it with compassion, and do the work. So, back to that second lens of forgiveness, not being the victim, we get to look at our emotions directly without judgment and say, okay, where am I giving away my power? Where am I putting somebody else in charge of how I feel? All right, how can I choose differently? And look at the limiting belief that goes along with it. So with a romantic partner, you're feeling angry because they didn't keep a promise, or angry because they cheated, or angry because they said they were going to do something and didn't, whatever the reason. What's the limiting belief? Limiting meaning of the ego, belief underlying it. Well, because they did this, it means that I'm not worth treating well. Because they did this, it means I'm not lovable. Because they did this, it means I'm not worth valuing. I'm not worth prioritizing. Well, that hurts like hell. Those limiting beliefs hurt like hell. And it comes out as anger. Anger is usually the protective emotion that's out here, protecting the wounded child within. Going, why don't you love me? Why am I not good enough for you to prioritize me? Why don't you make time for me? Why would you break a promise to me and betray me? Am I not valuable? These are things that we learn as children, usually. And we carry them with us and we replay them over and over and over until we're willing to look directly at our pain, look directly at the underlying limiting meaning of the ego beliefs underneath, and alchemize them, heal them, bring them into our home today, bring them into our hearts today. So we can look at where we're giving away our power and our peace, and then choose differently. Choose differently. Forgive is to choose differently, is to shift our perception. So you can say, okay, this person caused me pain. Underneath that pain is the limiting belief of I'm not worth it. Is the limiting belief of I'm just not good enough. Nobody's ever gonna stay with me. Okay, that hurts. Acknowledge it, hold it with compassion, and then move through. Forgive, shift the perception. I am worth it. I am lovable. I am valuable. I am worth prioritizing. I am worth keeping promises to. I am a bright and beautiful human being. And the love I give is the love I deserve to receive. I'm going to shine brightly. And I'm only going to accept that which reflects back to me my value, my power, my peace. Anything else has no right to be in my space, and I will not engage with it. Right? Go somewhere else, and to whatever degree. And remember, with emotions, they have momentum. So if the momentum of your emotion right now is at -30, it might be a little difficult to go straight from that to I'm an incredible human and I'm radiant and I'm shining and I'm out in the world, so move to something that feels realistic to you, that your body will accept. So, and that might be, I'm worth prioritizing. I deserve better than this. I deserve better. Or I'm gonna show up for myself today. I'm gonna show up for myself. I'm gonna keep my promises to myself. because we also break promises to ourselves, and that in itself is a relationship with which we need trust and commitment and consistency and compassion. Okay, so conflict must be resolved. Forgiveness ends the dream of conflict here. Forgiveness. So conflict needs to be looked at directly and alchemized through the process of our holding it with compassion, looking at the underlying limiting belief directly, not running from it, and choosing something more empowered, choosing something from our truth, from our place of wholeness, not from the ego's belief of limitation and separation. Okay, we can never be separate from life. We can never be separate from love. We are always supported by this universe, this ever-present, resourceful, there's opportunities in every moment. In every breath we take, there's hope. We can have faith with every step that we take, one foot in front of the other, that we will find our way, that we will be resilient, that we will rise, that we have the power to choose. And when we take 1,000% responsibility for how we feel, we don't have to be afraid anymore. When we take 1,000% responsibility for how we feel inside, for our garden in here, our inner sanctuary, when we are the ones, the gatekeeper, we don't have to walk around afraid. We can be in the world and not of it, because we can now interact with people without that subconscious voice going, how are you gonna hurt me? How are you gonna break me? How are you gonna betray me? How are you gonna stick the knife in there and pull on it? Because that's no longer a potential. That's no longer an option. We realize other people's actions are an expression of their journey, of their unresolved conflict. And we, not being the victim of the world we see, being the gatekeeper of our inner sanctuary, 1,000% responsibility for our world inside, can then take more empowered action toward ourselves and toward the people that we interact with. Holding ourselves accountable means we also hold the world accountable and the people around us. That's not who you are. You know, when they're acting with anger and aggression and weakness, whatever it may be, you're better than that. And I'm gonna call forth your light, because we do the same for ourselves. You're better than that. You deserve higher. You can be brighter. Don't be afraid of your power. Don't be afraid of your light. Rise, shine, go for it. So through the lens of forgiveness, of shifting perception, of no longer being the victim to anything we experience, being willing to sit with our pain, to look at it directly, at our anger, at our resentment, at our wounds, to hold that with compassion, with kindness, and with power. Then we can alchemize it, move through it, and be that with the world around us as well. So once again, fear ends the dream of conflict here. Conflict must be resolved. It can't be evaded. It must be seen exactly as it is. For only then are its defenses lifted and the truth can shine upon it as it disappears. The truth will shine away all illusions, because the illusions themselves, the illusions of fear and weakness and unworthiness, are not real. Just like the darkness is not real. The light shines it away. The truth shines away our illusions and our fear. So bring the truth in today and put the lens on of, I take responsibility for how I feel. I take full command over my inner world, how I see myself, the beliefs that I hold, and I'm fully willing to look at and shift any beliefs that are hurting me. Nobody else gets the power to do that today. I do. I'm not giving my power away anymore. I'm not giving my peace away anymore. It's right here. Thank you for joining me. Please comment ask questions, share stories. I would love for this to be an open dialogue. Lots of love. Have an amazing day.